Welcome to RainierAvenueRadio.world and our special impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities broadcast. Um, Back in March, governors and mayors across the America, ordered restaurants, bars, and nightclubs to close. Well, the goal was precluding large social gatherings and slowing the spread of the novel coronavirus. Essentially, nightlife in America was in a pandemic-induced coma, leaving bartenders, waitresses, and other staff members dependent on large gatherings without any income. It's also left long-standing establishments facing bills that don't stop, even though the party has. As a result, places begun crowdfunding campaigns to pay their employees and keep the lights on. Um, a number of different things. One of the things that is taking place here is Save Our Stages Act. Um, and this is a $10 billion to help venues through the next 6 months to be distributed via grants of up to $12 million per venue or 45% of the venue's operating costs in 2019, whichever is less. This funding could be used to cover costs incurred during the pandemic, as well as pay for rent, utilities, mortgages, personal protective equipment, maintenance, administrative costs, taxes, and expenses that would allow venues to meet local and federal social distancing guidelines. Joining me on the program, I got a couple folks hit with me. Marty Griswold from the executive director of One Reel. One Reel is excited to announce that Marty's the new executive director. For nearly 30 years, Marty's been an integral part of the local media landscape, representing Seattle's most renowned news, lifestyle, and arts publications. And through his tenure as a service as publisher of the Seattle Met, associate publisher of City Arts Magazine, and sales and marketing director for The Stranger, Marty has a wealth of knowledge, creativity, and solid business acumen. Marty, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Under the circumstances, Marty, I'm fantastic.
I hear you.
Also joining us on the program, he was here. Oh man, maybe almost a couple months ago now. Steve Severin, co-owner of one of Seattle's amazing live music venues, Neumos on Capitol Hill, for more than a decade, and also co-owner of the Barboza and the Runway Bar. And Steve, good to have you joining us back again. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us, Tony. Good to see you again.
Yep. Well, you know what? Let's start off with this. Obviously, I want to talk about Save Our Stages. I mentioned, if you hadn't tuned in when we started the broadcast at 1 o'clock, that here we are staring August in the face. We began these broadcasts on March 13th. Since then, every Friday, we have continued to do these broadcasts. And if I'm looking into my crystal ball, we still have a long way to go. And I'd like to start with both of you. I guess, Marty, I'll start with you. When the lockdown first happened, and I mentioned again to start off the show, the nightlife was essentially shut down. You know, bartenders, waitresses, folks who made their money dependent on large gatherings. Um, Everybody just kind of walked away. Uh, Marty, what do you see happening now? From take us from where you were back then, early March, to where we are right now. What you see progressing and how this thing is potentially going to unfold to get us to the point where we need to Save Our Stages Act.
Yeah. Well, it started early for me, as far as or late February, I guess it was.
Hmm.
We do a lot of work with the city, so it's like they were in a lot of meetings about COVID. So we kind of got the heads up that COVID was going to be a serious thing,
Hmm.
and an understatement, I know. So we kind of sprang into action pretty quickly, and downsized and really kind of tried to be very conservative in what we were doing. Um, our two major events, obviously, is Bumper Shoot and then Pianos in the Parks. At the time, no one was willing to touch anything. So it's like Pianos in the Parks wasn't the greatest idea to be doing at that time. Now I kind of kick myself. It's like I think it would be a great thing to have out in the parks right now.
Hmm.
But you never know. So we we shut down that, and then we waited for the city to give us authorization to shut down Bumper Shoot, and we had to wait for that. But once we got that, it was great to be able to actually do, because it's like we knew we weren't going to be able to produce Bumper Shoots as we progressed through COVID-19, and there doesn't look to be like an end in sight anytime soon. We hope so, but it's like, right now it's all kind of a mystery. We're kind of a latecomer to the legislation that's happening right now and everything that Stephen's been working on. So I would defer to him more to talk about the Save Our Stages program, because it's like I sent something out this week, which was very late in the game. And it was just because somebody else had pointed out and said that I should be supporting this. And it's like, I realized I really should. And so but I know Stephen has worked very hard for a long time on this. And I don't want to downplay our involvement compared to his involvement. It's like, definitely, it's a good thing for us all to be working together. And particularly in this difficult time when, gatherings, we can't do more than 5 or 10.
And I am going to get to Steve, but you play a role in this as well. Your stages, for the most part, for Bumper Shoot, would be outside. That's one thing they're saying, may reduce the potential for transmission of this. When did you first really start to give it some thought, and then when you say it's this, we're outside, but this isn't going to work? And what were the reasons that led to you coming to that decision? Obviously, we know now what's happened,
right.
but again, and then I'm gonna get to Steve. Nightclubs are inside, but then there were some events that started to be canceled right away. South by Southwest, some other large events that were happening before Bumper Shoot. When did it finally hit you that you may not be able to do this, and then we're not going to be able to do this?
It hit us probably in late February that it's like there was a possibility we weren't going to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
As things progressed, we knew pretty quickly. It's like March, April,
Mm-hmm.
because those are key times where we really invest in booking bands and all of that stuff that's supposed to be happening right then. We weren't able to do. If you can't book your bands and you have no idea if people are going to be able to go on tour, you can't really keep going inside. And so we kind of had to put it on the back burner. We started working on some other stuff that wasn't outdoors or it wasn't, once it wasn't about public gatherings. And I think that was really important. We started working on the Art Saves Me program. But as far as Pianos in the Parks and Bumper Shoot, both of them were so dependent on interaction with and engagement, of the public that, during this time, we knew pretty quickly that we couldn't do it. Unfortunately, we had to wait because it's like we couldn't make that call ourselves. We work with the city and, Seattle Center, and thankfully Seattle Center agreed with us, and it just took a little longer for us to be able to make the announcement. So we were kind of the last ones to actually announce that we weren't going to be doing Bumper Shoot, but we were one of the first ones probably to realize that we wouldn't be able to do it.
And so how does this impact that process? And I'm assuming you have to make deposits to bands. Again, bands put this in their schedule. All these things have to be done and arranged. Some of the behind the scenes stuff. You have people, I'm assuming, who have been hired, or you're taking applications in preparation for this event. What I'm getting at, Marty, is even though this is not taking place now, and that's what folks may see, it's not taking place.
Right.
What are some of the things that have transpired that have impacted this event, and how you and others like you who do outdoor events, who do events where you have multiple performances, multiple stages, how is this? How did it impact?
It was, it's obviously very rough. We're kind of unique in that we're a big producer, but we actually are also a nonprofit. So we have kind of two ways to look at this. It's like, we are very dependent on ticket sales, obviously. It's like, but we're also dependent on grants and sponsorships. And, that's the only way we can actually survive. We have no income coming in right now, or very, very little, I guess I should say. And so, it's affected us as an organization. It's affected, as far as the costs of putting on a big, huge operation like Bumbershoot, we invest a lot, and when something like this gets canceled, it's nearly impossible to recoup. And so it means all of the people that work on Bumbershoot together, it's like a lot of unemployments and layoffs. It's like and disappointment to the city, because it's like, I think the city really hoped, and we had hoped originally that Bumbershoot was started 49 years ago to be in response to basically Boeing, the big crash in Boeing. And so it was a chance for Seattle to kind of give back to the community. And so it started as this big, event to give back to the community and engage people. And so I think we all kind of fantasized about the idea that Bumbershoot would come back in the fall and be that to people. Despite knowing that we weren't able to be doing the bookings and things like that we needed to do, but it just took a long time to get there. So, the financial impact is, it's millions of dollars to feed the economy here, as far as personnel, artists that are, brought in for Bumbershoots, local artists and musicians, and there's a huge impact, I guess I should say. It's like,
I mean, and as you're talking and folks listening, you bring in artists. That means there's also transportation involved. Artists have to be moved from here to there. I'm assuming you're probably putting them up in hotels somewhere. That's another thing that's happening there. There's just a lot of dominoes that fall when COVID happened, and when the impact of what folks may see is, okay, there's no musicians on stage, there's no Bumbershoot.
Yeah.
But there's a lot more that went into this, not to mention permits or whatever else you needed to do that you do on an annual basis. Again, my guest is Marty Griswold, Executive Director of One Reel. We're talking about we will be talking about Save Our Stages Act. I wanted to, again, just give you more background information with the people I have on as guests about what the entertainment industry, what the nightlife industry is all about, Steve. And we are going to talk about Save Our Stages. And I know we've talked about this before, but for anyone who may not have heard, I mean, for you, when you shut down, you've got acts coming in consistently. You've got a business that operates regularly, and then one day it's shut down. I want to ask you that same question. From where you were when this initially happened, were you thinking that you would still be here, maybe even in worse condition, looking at August?
I guess I thought when things were hitting, I was thinking somewhere in the 3 to 6 month range. I knew that it was going to be long enough that things were going to be pretty bad for a while, but we expected we would be back by fall, and maybe some smaller shows in the summer. But most of the music industry thought that we would be back by fall for the first 3 or 4 weeks. And then it got a little clearer of how contagious it was. And it's the thing that I know that Dr. Fauci has talked about. It's not that the virus is so strong, it's that it's so contagious. And that's when it got really clear that we weren't going to be able to do anything inside for a long time. And now, as it's going along, I mean, we're looking that it's probably going to be another year before something happens, because all of the experts are saying, maybe there's a vaccine at the end of the year, beginning of next year, but it's going to take 3 to 6 months before people all get the vaccine. And nobody's going back inside places until there's a vaccine. Let me rephrase that. Not nobody, because there's people that will go inside today. Most people with common sense won't go back inside until there's a vaccine. So I didn't realize how bad it was going to be, but as time went, I knew it was going to be bad. There's a lot of people that kept saying like, "Oh, next month it'll be okay. Next month it'll be okay," and I'm usually an optimist, and I was definitely a pessimist on this. I was like, yeah, there's no way. There's just not. It's not happening.
So let's talk again about some of the behind the scenes stuff. This happens. You've got shows scheduled. Again, I imagine you've probably paid deposits. You've had groups. Hey, this is how they make their living. They tour. And how did you approach all of this? I mean, can you share with us what had to happen? I mean, we're going to get to the Save Our Stages and the amount of money that you're looking for, but I just want to have you address the impact and again the way that once these dominoes start falling, how they trickle backwards throughout the industry. At this point in time, I think folks have attempted to do drive-in concerts. There have been suggestions about putting, in some live performance venues, putting plastic, between the stage and the artist and then between the seats. I don't know how that's going to work. Maybe you can tell me what your thoughts are on how you social distance when a live music performance is all about energy. It's all about, that's why you go see the live performance. But let's start with what happened with you, and I know you don't want to necessarily have to give me all your financial details, but just give us some kind of firsthand experience. You got a lot of stuff laid out. You're excited. You've got shows booked. You've got advertising going out so that you can sell tickets and you can get people in, and then boom, there's nothing. What was the trickle down?
So the way that the touring industry works is that it kicks in like February, March. And we were looking at having possibly the biggest spring that we had ever had. Our summer was looking phenomenal, and our fall was already booked out. I mean, we were way out of 2020, booking into 2021.
Wow.
Multiple shows a night. We were going to be doing way more 2 shows in one day on both Fridays, Saturdays, pretty consistently. And this was across the whole industry. So when I talk about like what happened at Neumos, this is happening in 2,000 plus venues across the country. March 11th, is the day that we decide, okay, we're gonna shut everything down. And immediately it was like, okay, this is going to be a couple of months. And so immediately you have to lay off a bunch of your staff, which is the hardest part of this, is having to go to people who have worked there longer than I have. So I missed it. On Monday was my 15-year anniversary of taking over Neumos. I came in a year and a half after they opened up, and I totally forgot that my anniversary went by. And there were people that we had to let go who had been there longer than I had. And that's it's brutal. And we tried to, leave a couple of people on, some of the managers, because we're like, okay, we need you to stay with us long term. So we're going to keep paying you, and maybe it won't be so bad. And we need to keep booking shows because of the fall. And then as time went, we had to let basically everybody go because we have zero income. We just came out of going from the end of the year, which once you hit December 15th, it's pretty dead until the middle of February. So it's lean times. You're not going in flush. And then you have to turn around and lay everybody off. And then you've got to make all the calls and talk with all the agents who are calling and they're like, so is my show going to happen in September? Can we make offers for October? Still having that hope. So let's just keep kicking the can down the road and see if, maybe we can get to April and things will be better, or we'll get to May and it'll be a little better. And the further it went, the more it became really clear that it wasn't going to happen, and there was going to be no income coming in for a long time. And that's when that's when it started getting really hard, and people started closing, which is, when you do something like the three of us do that we love and that affects a lot of people, what we do makes a lot of people really, really happy. That's hard. And we can't do what we love to do, and we can't do it for a long time. And that's sort of, the position we're in now, where we're just trying to wait and hope for that vaccine.
And so that impacts, that's something else that as you discussed there. Well, agents don't know what to do. Artists don't know what to do. And Steve, you may not have the answer to this question, but what happens to the artist at that point? How viable, or realistic are you thinking at the time it would be to do something virtual, which is, kind of the lane that everybody had to fall in? And, Steve, I'm asking this question of you, but at the same time, Marty, you can certainly jump in. Did it ever cross your mind to try to do this virtually? And Steve, for you, was it even an option? Was it a way that you saw any way possible to potentially recoup some of the loss working with the artists, or trying to figure that out with the agents?
We just did our first virtual show last week, a band called Naked Giants. It was cool. It was great to see artists up on the stage. A fair amount of people came and watched it, but it's not the same. It's not even close to the same. I've watched a few live streams. I watched the Nick Cave one from, I think it was London the other day, that was beautifully shot and was incredible. But Neumos and Barboza paid 10,000 artists last year. Those are all people that's how they make, that's their living. That's how they pay their mortgage or their rent, and they pay for their childcare and food on the table. 10,000 people. Then there's all of the others that are attached to it, the sound people that tour, and the tour managers and the agents. And all those people lost their jobs with this. And there's a lot of people, I know some people in some pretty big bands that have been touring around the world for 20 years who are now going, I don't know what to do. I need to go get a job and do something else. I have to find a way to actually provide for my family. I, who own 4 businesses, am currently looking for a job. I'm actually put in some requests to some people, and I have an offer coming in for something. And I haven't had a regular job in a long, long time. And so it's, we don't know what's going to happen. The CAA, one of the largest agencies, laid off 300 people this week, and 100 of them are agents. Some of the biggest bands out there, Kanye West, Beyonce, their agents got let go. Because we don't know when it's going to, when music and everything is going to come back again. So it's really hard right now to know where things are going to go. And the virtual thing, it's cool. It's fun. Lollapalooza is supposed to be this weekend. I bought this Sonos soundbar so that it sounds a lot better coming out of my TV. I watched a little Run the Jewels yesterday from it. But it's not replacing income. It's not going to take care of bands. There are some people that are doing some really creative stuff to help a little bit, just to get some income, but it's not going to do enough. It's not going to do much.
Well, a good part of the bands, it's going to a show is social interactive, right? And it's cut that out of the mix, and it's watching it on the screen isn't the same. It's not going to get you laid, which is I know that was a big part of going to shows when I was young. And it's that's not there. So you take that out of the equation, and it's there's a lot less interest in But I look at Steven's business insight model, and it's like, we share an office with the postering company that does all the posters for most of the rock clubs in Seattle, and it's like a time capsule in there right now. You look in this room with hundreds and hundreds of posters of things that were coming up this spring and summer, and it all stopped, right? It's like, it's just, when you walk through there, you see the gravity of what it must be for the clubs, to be like, because they had, there's so many shows booked out. I mean, literally, these were like flyers that were going to July, and it all stopped.
You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. My guests, again, Marty Griswold, Executive Director at One Reel, and Steve Severin, corner of Neumos and other establishments. Just kind of wanted to set the stage for you here about the entertainment industry, the nightlife, and bands and agents and everything that's involved, bookers, those who work in the industry, who depend on this industry, which is probably going to be the last thing that opens up. And so there is now Save Our Stages. And we're going to talk about Save Our Stages. And Steve, I'm going to go straight to you when we come back from this break to talk about a proposed $10 million to help venues through the next 6 months right after this.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time, and when I'm not meeting Mrs. Jones in that cafe for a chat and nothing else, I'm listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Class of 2020 graduates, we are... no, wait a minute, let's see. To the esteemed graduates of the class of 2020. Run that back again. When you finish high school, college, grad school, or even grade school, I mean, you're still graduating. It just doesn't feel right. 2020 graduates, we got you. Rainier Avenue Radio celebrates your hard work while maintaining safe and social distance. Rainier Avenue Radio celebrates your commencement. Without the crowds, but with a lot of pomp and circumstance. Presenting your class of 2020 graduates. Congratulations to Akira Copeland. Akira Copeland is graduating from Cleveland High School in the class of 2020. Akira completed the STEM program at Cleveland High School. Akira also completed the College Success Program at the University of Washington Summer School STEM program. Akira loves her family. Akira's favorite subjects are science and language. Akira will be attending Seattle Pacific University. Akira will be studying to become a genetic counselor. She'll be majoring in cellular and molecular biology. Akira, your mother Tanisha, and your father Carl are very, very proud of you. Akira Copeland, 2020 grad from Cleveland High School, going to Seattle Pacific University.
This is your RainierAvenueRadio.world community update on the new City of Seattle Community Resource Hub, a one-stop online shop for city resources and information. Supported by the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods, the Community Resource Hub can be found at seattle.gov/resourcehub. It's an online portal of city resources, information, and tools to help community members connect and engage with city government and with each other. That is seattle.gov/resourcehub.
There's a lot going on. Are you ready? Ready to feel better, look better, be better? Drink water. Be ready for a pickup game. Insta-frame to work hard towards your aim. Drink water. Hydrate. Hydrate to invest in yourself. Cut down on sugar. Invest in your health. Imagine the possibilities and reach your potential. Who knows what's next? Be ready. Be hydrated.
RainierAvenueRadio.world is your 24/7 digital media hub. Tune in at RainierAvenueRadio.world. Also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TuneIn apps.
Welcome back to RainierAvenueRadio.world. It's me, your host, Tony B. Marty Griswold joining me, Steve Severin joining me. We're having a conversation ultimately about the impact of the coronavirus on the nightlife, the entertainment industry, and the ripple effect that has on a number of different businesses and individuals. Save our stages. Steve, let's start with this. Save our stages. What was the genesis of Save Our Stages, and what is? Yeah, let's start with that.
Save Our Stages came out of, I guess, a week after we shut down here in Washington. We started talking with all the music venues, got everybody together, and it was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to make it through this? And so we quickly formed a group called Washington Nightlife and Music Association and launched on, like, I think April 1st. While we were doing this, there was a group nationally called NIVA, the National Independent Venue Alliance, that was doing the exact same thing, only they were doing it across the country. And their whole point from the jump was to lobby federally, which is what we did out of the gates, because we knew the type of money that we were going to need was going to have to come from the government. I mean, the government is making it so that we're forced to close down, no matter what, whether we want to or not, which most people that I work with and speak with all understand the importance of it. But still, we were forced to, and our government is supposed to be there to help in times like this. And so we immediately just started hitting up our senators and our reps, and then it got pushed across the country. And when you can get almost 2,500 venues with all people who are, and festivals as well, with all people that what we do is promote shows. We just sit there and advertise and tell people this is where you should go. It wasn't a big stretch for us to tell Senators Murray and Senators Cantwell here in Washington that they need to do something financially to help all of the venues and the small businesses. We really, the SOS Act is important, but so is the Restart Act, which is a very similar thing to SOS, but it's focused on small businesses, and they can both be done. And so we really have been pushing for both of those because they're both obviously extremely important.
I want to get deeper into this, but we also take phone calls. So if you want to give us a shout at 206-290-9685, that's 206-290-U5, YOU5. Give us a shout. Tell us what you think about this conversation. You can share your experiences, how this has impacted you, and how it rolls downhill. I think on the phones now with us, we have DJ Rage calling in from Las Vegas. DJ Rage, are you on the line?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Doing well. So you called up, you wanted to join the conversation. Give us your feedback.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Tony B, for airing this and opening a conversation for those that are in the dark, so to speak, with the whole situation as far as entertainment, as far as artists are concerned, etc. Big shout out to Marty and Steven. You guys are awesome. I used to work at the Showbox back in the days and did security for them. And I miss those guys. I miss Seattle, Washington. But Neumos, you guys are fantastic. Marty, I commend you for your work as well. And I also wanted to say that I'm just happy to hear you guys speak upon what's going on with this shutdown. And it really hurt my business as an artist. And I travel all over the U.S. DJing at different venues. Thanks to the Showbox for opening that door for me to be able to do that. And just I just wanted to commend all three of you and thank you for talking about the narrative in this situation with COVID-19.
With that, DJ Rage, hey, thanks for giving us a call and appreciate having your voice. as part
Thank
of
you.
this.
Appreciate it.
Again, Steve, and if anybody wants to call and share your experience, you're free to do that. 206-290-9685. That call-in line again is 206-290-U5, YOU5. Again, Steve, back to the page. The $10 billion is what you were going to be asking for. How did you come up with that figure? And again, how will this help, or if it will help, stop the bleeding? Now, we know that a number of different entities and agencies, groups have been essentially what you want to call it, bailed out during this time. Nightlife is certainly something that is critical. I mean, you talk about a city, one of the things that come to mind is their nightlife. What will this do? And it might just be the simple, process of sustainability for some folks who have done this to keep the doors open. But save our stages. What ultimately is it that you want to have happen here? Unfortunately, we know it's not going to be performances. But what is it that you want to have happen here?
What we're trying to do is to at least get through the next year. It could be longer, and we may have to go back to the government again. And $10 billion isn't going to take care of every venue. There are still going to be venues that close because this is only going to cover about half of what we're going to need. I don't know any business that can survive really on 50% of income, which is essentially what we're asking for. It's kind of funny. It's not funny. It's actually sad. But we've done surveys and we've done a lot of studies, and the music industry, or the live music industry, contributes about $35 billion to the economy each year, and we're asking for $10 billion to be able to continue, not just this year, but hopefully to be able to continue. There's close to 100 venues that have already closed down across the country. A great venue in Portland, Maine, not yesterday, but the day before, which is the Neumos of Portland, Maine, closed down because they just couldn't do it. They couldn't make it down. They couldn't make it down the road far enough to be able to keep their doors open. We still have to pay our rents. We still have to pay our insurance. We still have to pay our taxes. The taxes are still astronomical because we're paying for what's already happened. And so with the Save Our Stages Act, it will get us further down the road and allow us to find other ways to try and help get us there. One of the things that both NEVA's doing on a national level and we're doing locally here with Keep Music Live is we're now starting to talk with private companies, asking them to come and help us get across the finish line. Companies like Amazon and Microsoft, they use the live music industry as a recruitment tool to bring people who all the tech companies compete for. So for that kid coming out of Oberlin College or University of Texas or University of or Michigan State, everybody's competing for them. And these tech companies use the music industry to bring them here so that they'll work for them, but they push what we do. And so we're now starting to reach out to some of them and asking them, hey, we need your help. We need you to help us so that we can continue to be here, because music is the soul of Seattle. I mean, it's such a fabric, such a huge, important part of what we do and have for going back to the 60s. And even further than that, going back to the 30s and 40s when you go back into the jazz clubs. And so that's what we need to be able to get further down the road. We know that Save Our Stages Act is not going to fix everything, but it's going to help us get further. And that's the amount of money that's being thrown around that's going to various things, it's a minuscule amount compared to what's out there and compared to what the need is.
And the Save Our Stages Act, is this federal? Is it state by state? Is it county? Just give us some more background how it came together and who it's going to cover. And again, ultimately, what I want to get to is how do you see, is this something that's going to be on the ballot? How's it going to work?
So a couple of senators started with it, and they sponsored the legislation. We worked with them. One was on the Dems, one was on the Republican side. And we worked with them and told them this is what the needs are, helped them craft the wording, the legislation. And then we worked to get co-sponsors on it. Particularly with the restart, we've gotten up to, I think, 50 different senators and U.S. reps to sponsor it. And so the way that it works now is right now they're all in D.C. trying to figure out what is going to be in this $1 trillion package that comes out that's going to be called whatever it is. That doesn't matter. It's the CARES Act or the Who Cares Act, or that doesn't matter. What they do is they take all of these pieces from all these different bills and they go to their colleagues and say, hey, will you support giving $10 billion to music venues across the country? And they, sit there and they negotiate because they have $1 trillion to figure out who's going to get what and who's not, and see if they can figure out how to get that money in there. And so this is all of them behind their closed doors, pushing for, as they say, the American people, for their constituents of what they want. So this is something that they'll be deciding, and they'll have a decision within a week. And that's the reason that we have been working so hard on the lobbying and asking people to go to saveourstages.com and to send emails to Congress. We have a little thing up there that takes 30 seconds. You fill it out and it goes right to them and says, please support the Restart Act. Please support SOS Act. And we got over 1 million emails and calls in 48 hours when we first put this out. They've never seen anything like it. Everybody in DC, all the lobbyists were talking about what an incredible feat it was. And now we're up to, I think, 1.4 million calls and emails, all saying, please support the music venues, support small businesses across the country. They need your financial help, and the festivals as well.
Marty, you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's it's the fact of the matter is that every sector has been decimated. It's like right now, as far as everybody's in a hurting mode. There are some industries that are going to be able to come back a little sooner, though. The entertainment industry isn't going to. I mean, it's just obvious, and it's like because you can't have gatherings, it's like you can't put people together. It's we have to wait this out, and the longer we wait, it's like the longer it is. Like Stephen said, every businesses are closing down right and left. We're one of the few festivals even still standing at this point, and we're doing our best to kind of continue it and exist. It's like so. Yes, we're asking a lot from the federal government. It's like to help step up, but I don't think we're asking outside of what the rest of the industries, that have been hit by COVID, have gone through, and that we're all going to need a little bit of a bailout. It's like, but when you take into consideration, it's not money for the clubs; it's money for this industry, and this industry is much bigger than the clubs. It goes to artists. It goes to it's like we are a big part of the music industry and how we support their, the livelihoods of so many of artists and support people. It's like lighting, tech people. It's like, as door people. It's like, it just, the list goes on and on and on. And so I don't think people realize how big the club scene really, how large it is, what a large swath of the population it actually affects.
You bring something up there, and essentially patrons, they're the lifeblood of the nightlife scene. If you don't have patrons, but then along with that, you got your, and like we just have open, honest conversation here, Marty, and that's why I appreciated your conversation before you don't get laid. But you also have your favorite bartender, that remembers your birthday, and then that waitress that maybe gives you a couple extra wings, that attaches you to these places, and again, yes, you party and you have a good time, but there are also relationships that are built with the staff that works there that makes people feel like they have ownership to these venues, and that's not even getting to the point of the music. You're listening to RainierAvenueRadio.world. This is our special Friday coverage of the impacts of the coronavirus on South Seattle and surrounding communities. We are talking about the Save Our Stages Act. My guests joining me are Marty Griswold, Executive Director from One Reel, and then also Steve Severin, co-owner of the Neumos and a couple other venues in the city. Save Our Stages. Explain how the nightlife, the nighttime, the entertainment industry came together, Stephen, if you will, and if there's a way to distribute this money equitably, because we know what happened last time, and so I'm not going to say all venues aren't hurting, but we do have some corporate promotions entities that book shows, and I'm not saying they don't hire people and they're not losing money as well, but I think that the thought that people would have for something like this is we're talking about, smaller independent venues, again, the events that you go to outside once a year that are put on by certain entities. How are we going to know that the money doesn't go into the hands first of larger groups? I'm just not going to mention any names, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So there's two different things. There's us here in WANMA and Keep Music Live here in Washington State.
Mm-hmm. And maybe
also,
it should go to these large. I don't know. Just tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, so what we did was, and Neva did this as well, is that we set up parameters where you had to hit certain criteria in order to be able to be funded. And one of them was you had to be a small business, which is 500 full-time employees or less, which is not that small to me, but still that's considered small business. You can't be publicly traded. So it took out, and the other big one was that you can't promote in more than 10 different states. So what it did was it took out the two giant corporations that are music promoters in the country that control a lot of what happens, and it made it so that they're not able to be involved. One of the other things that we did, and I really pushed for this heavily nationally, and we did this here, with Washington Nightlife Music Association, we set up a board of directors for Keep Music Live, who are separate from the people that are going to get money. And we had them come up with a criteria of how to equitably distribute the money. And so they came up with a list of criteria, which I still haven't gotten to hear what they are yet. They're just voted. But some of the things that I know were put forward was that the music venues have to have an average of 3 shows a week. So it's not just the restaurant that throws shows in the back rooms and makes their money selling nachos and Miller Lights. And then there's some other factors that aren't as sexy that just so you know that they're music venues.
Mm-hmm.
But then we put in bonuses if you're either a female-owned club, a person of color-owned club, LGBTQ plus club. Bonus went to legacy venues. So if you've been around, I think it's 15 years or longer, that you would receive extra funding to make it so that it's not just the same people that are running things, and that it makes it, and we try to make it more fair, and make sure that it's getting to the people that need it. Because there's a lot of companies that can go get money other ways. I can't go get a loan right now. I don't have any income. I don't have a job. Nobody's giving me anything. My wife and I, we got to get a new car. We're not getting a new car because no one's giving me a loan. And so we tried to make sure that it really is going to people that need it. And we did this with NEVA as well. Now, granted, there are some places like Tampa, Florida, where getting a bonus for LGBTQ plus isn't a priority for them. So these were just suggestions of like, here's a way to make it more equitable to everybody.
Okay. And for folks who you want to support this, what can they do? You mentioned before, is there anything that they can do to aware their congresspersons to move on this?
Yeah, so there's two things that we're doing. Nationally, everything is about saveourstages.com. Go there. You can email your congress people. Do it today. They're negotiating as we speak. I just got off the phone earlier with Senator Cantwell's legislative aides and Senator Murray's legislative aides and told them about the venue closing in Portland, Maine that is Seattle's Neumos. They need to save that. And so that's all going on as we speak. We just keep hammering on them. And the more calls and emails they get, the more likely they're going to do something. The other thing here in Washington, our website's wanma.info. We're about to launch a campaign called Keep Music Live, where people can donate to help all of the local music venues. And that is currently being set up as we speak, because covering half of it isn't going to do it. And there are so many people that are on the precipice of just calling it a day because it's so hard and it's so frustrating. I've never worked so hard for nothing in my life. And I'm one of the lucky ones. So those are the two things. If people can do that, we can get through this.
The Save Our Stages Act. You said saveourstages.com. And again, Stephen, what was that website for folks to go to that you mentioned?
WANMA. So it's WashingtonNMA.info.
All right. .info. I want to give both. We've got a couple minutes left here, but I certainly want to give both of you an opportunity for final words. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing this information and giving us a kind of behind the scenes look at the impact that the coronavirus is having on the nightclubs and everything that engages and involves. So, Marty, I'll start with you. Opportunity for final words here.
Yeah. Since this whole pandemic has started, we kind of had to shift our focus a little bit. And we had a program called Art Saves Me that we've kind of taken front and center. And what we've been concentrating on is trying to figure out ways to support local artists who are going through this that are hit so hard. And so the Art Saves Me program is really to give them an opportunity to get wider exposure and finances and all of that. So it's we're working on music right now, and the thing is, we have 150,000 followers on social media through Bumbershoot, and we're figuring out ways that we can maximize that to help artists that are suffering right now, and also to be able to play. Right? It's come on, if you're a musician, you want to play and you want to perform. So how do we make that connection, or how can we help make that connection for artists and public. So that's what we're working on. And actually, I'm working with Lee over at Tractor Tavern, who actually put me in touch with all of this. It's like, and we should talk to you even, because it's like I would love to like figure out a way that we could all work together to help promote the musicians that are getting impacted right now.
Is there a website that folks can go to find more information?
Right now, Art Saves Me is up and running, so it's artsavesme.org. It really focuses more on visual arts right now, but we'll be unveiling a whole component for musicians probably in the next month or so, in the next couple of weeks, probably.
All right. And Stephen, thanks again for joining us here on the radio. I really didn't know that we'd be talking about this again in August. And I certainly want to give you the opportunity for final words. And at this point, I'm going to say, you know what? We're probably going to have you on again in a few months to give us an update.
Thanks for having me. I'm always very excited to come speak with you, Tony, from Rainier Avenue Radio. The one thing I want to just end on is I want people to take this virus seriously. I have a friend who just lost 2 people because they went to a dance party 2 weeks ago. One slipped into a coma last night, and the other one passed last night. And it's because people don't believe that this virus is really deadly. And I know it's hard because it's so sunny out and I want to go run around and be around people and be at barbecues. We just can't right now. I mean, it really is a deadly virus. And it doesn't matter if you're 2, 20, or 90. It's taking people. And so really, I just want people to be able to really take it seriously and be kind to each other. This shit's hard. We're all in really difficult places and we're doing the best we can. So just try and stay nice to each other and we'll make it through.
The words to live by.
Sage advice. Thank you both again, gentlemen, for joining me here on RainierAvenueRadio.world, our special Friday coronavirus broadcast. We're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we'll have folks from Stay Healthy Seattle to talk with us about safe streets right after this.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can listen to us in your car 24/7 anytime by downloading the free TuneIn app. Once you do, search Rainier Avenue Radio. And remember, do not curse out your fellow drivers. This has been your Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update.
You can protect others from getting sick from COVID-19. Here's what you do. Stay at home unless you need food, medicine, or medical care. Avoid large crowds. And if you have to go out, stay at least 6